Shall we start, sir? Is it good? We can continue. Okay. So, hello everyone. I am Archie from the team of CISA Council. I welcome you all to the Auditing the Top 10 ISO 27001 Controls webinar conducted by CISA Council. It is a non-for-profit organization committed to empowering individuals and organizations through specialized training and globally recognized certification. Our mission is to strengthen the cybersecurity and IT governance ecosystem by building skilled professionals through programs such as Associate Information Systems Auditor, CISA, CSIM, CRISC Prep Training, ISO 27001 Lead Auditor, CISSP Prep Training, GDPR Specialist, and many more. Our director, Dr. Hiral Patel, is a visionary in the field of information technology and cybersecurity with um, over 16 years of global experience as a consultant and lead auditor. She is renowned for shaping the future of risk and compliances. Her passion lies in nurturing the next generation of professionals and guiding them into the dynamic world of information systems audit. In just more than 2 years since our establishment, JISA Council has proudly trained over 3,200 professionals across 60 plus countries, including participants from 170 plus global enterprises, with more than 30 Fortune 500 companies among them. Please note that our team will share the CP certificate form approximately 10 to 15 minutes before the session concludes. It is mandatory to complete and submit this form in order to receive your CP certificate. Now, it is my privilege to introduce Mr. Yagneshwar Iyer, a distinguished professional with over 30 plus years of experience in cybersecurity and IT governance. He holds certification including CISA, CSIM, CDPSC, and has served in leadership roles such as CIO, CTO, and CISO. We look forward to gaining the valuable insight from this vast experience in this webinar. Best wishes to all the participants. Sir, over to you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Arisha. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. How are you this evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you're joining from? Have you been to my previous webinars?
Yes, I was.
Oh, no, Chirag. Hi, Chirag. You're in a class,
Hi.
right?
Yes, I was in class.
Awesome, awesome. So you know that I take more time than is allotted. So I will try and not do that today. Okay. So yeah, so it's a very focused 1 hour today, okay? And I'm going to be a little fast because as I was telling Chirag, I tend to ramble on and keep talking. Once I start talking, I can't stop. So we're going to look at 10 critical ISO 27001 controls that we auditors, whether we are an auditor currently or you are intending to be an auditor, it's a good thing to know. Or even if you're an IT, you can reverse the contents of this presentation and look at how you should use these controls to improve the security posture of your organization and your team. Okay, so what we are going to look at is what does the standard, by standard I mean the ISO 27001 standard, what does it intend with each of these 10 controls? The 10 controls that we are going to cover are mentioned on the right. I won't waste time reading them out because I'm sure all of you have read it out. And we'll see why it matters, what kind of real world risk these controls address, and that also gives an understanding why the control even exists in the framework, right? And what is the evidence to gather, how to gather it. I've tried to use a little bit of a practical experience of doing that to show that the implementation of a control is actually effective, right? And it's not simply a checkbox or a check mark that someone has ticked because they want to get that ISO 27001 certification. Now, of course, there are there are different purpose, different focus of different audits. The audit I have done, I am not a certified lead auditor, so I don't do a audit. I don't do a 27001 audit to help companies comply or get certified as compliant with 27001. But I help them use the controls in 27001 to have a more effective information security management practice. So all these slides are all developed from that experience. Okay. And we'll also look at some kind of outputs and some kind of evidence that you need to see. Okay, the first one is information security policies. When I teach my CISA classes, I stress a lot on the difference between the two terms that you will find in these fields, in these frameworks, in these areas is governance and management. Governance is a framework itself which consists of which includes laws, regulations, policies, standards, and frameworks, and any industry standards that you might adopt. That is and governance is the responsibility of senior leadership. And when we use the word management, it's the people who are the tactical implementers of the intent and vision of the senior leadership as expressed by the governance framework that they set up. So the important thing is that the management should be aware of what the governance framework is. It's like saying that lawmakers will make a law, but they don't know hell about what they have made. Somebody's made, they just signed on it. That's not what we want in organization. We want management, senior management. So in COVID, there is a section called EDM, right? Evaluate, direct, and monitor. Not only do they have to evaluate what the organization needs in terms of risks management, in terms of controls, they should direct the implementation of those, and then also monitor that they are implemented. Therefore, a top level IS policy approved by senior management and one that they understand is important because it sets tone from the top. It sets intent of the management. As I said, it creates accountability and it creates enforceable obligations on part of the tactical management who are executing the vision of the governance framework, and on part of all others who are working. And all others could be employees, and it could be outsourced vendors, it could be other partners, vendor partners, customer partners. Many other entities could also be covered under the gambit of this. Right. What we need is topic specific policies. One page document that we will do everything properly is not good enough. Regular review cycles, at least annually or after significant change, right? You could have multiple reviews in a year because there might be changes in the business, there might be changes in the law, there might be changes in your business process, there might be change in technology. Any of those, there might be change in where you are working, right? The country. So and a lot of other similar changes can cause internal processes to also change. Therefore, your policies should also change along with that. What are the evidence you should collect? A signed, dated policy document with version history, board or management approval minutes, and sign off email, not just somebody's signature. There will be some communication, right? Some meeting, some email, somebody saying yes, right? Without that, don't accept it. It's just a signature then. Distribution log, email, internet posting, or learning management system completion records to show that employees have actually, that the policy is not only been created and signed by the leadership, but also been disseminated to the employees, and the employees have accepted it. Whether they have understood it is a different test altogether, but at least it has gone to them, they have accepted it. Right? Review dates visible on the policy compared to actual review meeting records. Don't just look at the policy document, oh, it has a date. Right? There will be some record, some meeting record, some email saying that I have reviewed, we have to review this, we have reviewed this, we did this. There should be something. So if you're an IT person, make sure you maintain that record to support the review date on your policy documents. Even if you're cheating, try to cheat well. Okay, staff awareness quiz or training completion report, right? This, you ask your staff questions based on the policy to see if they have understood it. Interview staff, can they name the policy and where to find it? That's one. Would just randomly find some employees. Don't tell if you're an auditor, don't tell them that you're going to ask them this question, so they'll prepare. Just go randomly walk in the office when you're going to audit. Call an employee, sir, can you please tell me what policies have you seen? Have you seen this policy? Where would you find it if I ask you to find it today? Right? The full 5 random employees, ask them to locate the information security policy within 2 minutes. Okay, that's one. Now, the red flags there to look for is the policies last reviewed 2 years ago. No topic specific policy, just one umbrella document. An umbrella document can never give you the kind of coverage, it can never give you the kind of risk um, identification and mitigation that most organizations will require. The management is unaware of policy content. That normally happens when there is no meeting, there is nobody explains the policy to the management. They are just told that we need a policy. Please, this is the policy. Please sign on it. Okay. Now, the second control we're going to look at is access control. Access control comes in various forms. We might be used to using certain applications in organizations where all of us have different roles and we can only do certain parts, right? You can only do the entry, you can only see some reports. You can't, if you're in purchase, you can't see sales. If you're in sales, you can't see stores. And those kind of limitations are what roles mean. You also would have roles or rights on, let's say, document folders, right? Document storage folders where you would have rights to certain folders, you wouldn't have rights to certain folders. A lot of us have Windows folders, Google Drive shared folders, or SharePoint. We all are used to it, that we have only access to certain folders, but not to some. Now, what is the basis for those? The basis for that is the principle of least privilege. Everybody in the organization should have rights that they need to do their jobs and no more. No less, of course, they won't be able to do their jobs, right? Access rights should be access rights to everything, all, even yeah, physical areas in the organization. Can you go to? Can everybody walk into the data center and start pulling cables out? No, they can't, right? There is also a restriction. So it should be granted on the need to know basis and on the basis of the principle of least privilege. Formal user registration, provisioning, and deprovisioning process is extremely important. Right? There should be proper approval of all new users. There should be proper follow-up and a process followed for when role changes happen of new users and when users exit. Periodic access reviews of what rights are given to different employees and to be approved by the right people to say that yes, these people have the correct the rights that they need and no more, especially for privileged accounts. Privileged accounts are accounts who can do higher order work. For example, in any organizational process, somebody who has the authority to authorize high value transactions, right? Their access should always be reviewed. Or it can be administrators. Administrators are people who can typically perform any and all actions, including deletion of data on systems, on databases, on applications, on servers. Their actions should be, and their privileges should be monitored more granularly. Segregation of duties, where segregation of duties has a simple, there are a couple of principles there. Is that a person who performs an operation should not be the person who authorizes or approves it. This is one basic principle of segregation of duties. The other one that you say is that a person is, if he's an administrator, is a owner of a device or a system, his actions on that device or system should be logged in a manner that this person who is god on that system, administrator, super user, should not be able to modify the audit trail of his or her own access. So you can, in IT systems, you can enable logging of all actions, and administrators can even destroy those logs. So you should set up systems where administrators can't destroy those logs. Those logs should be sent to some other system where administrators don't have access. Right? Excessive access is the number one enabler of insider threats. Now, depending on who you ask, anything up to 70 to 80% of data breaches happen because of collusion of internal people. Right? We have mostly protected ourselves from outside threats. When we leave home, we completely lock everything, or front door lock, 2 locks, 3 locks, everything, burglar alarms, everything. But we fail to check if there is a thief already inside, right? And then the thief has full access to our homes. We never check that. Similarly, in organizations, periodic access review, access given to various information assets based on their roles and no more, and then having the right controls where actions of everybody are properly monitored and approved where required are important controls to have. Okay, deprovisioning failures leave ghost accounts, which is a frequent audit finding, which means a user left, his account was not disabled or deleted, as the case may be. Okay, all these major frameworks and standards, they all reference the need for access control. They all universally, you'll see that the access control is specified as an important control across all frameworks. That is that I put that here only to emphasize the importance of auditing access control and implementing, helping organizations implement proper least privilege based access control to all information assets across the organization. Okay, what are the evidences? Now Active Directory is a kind of, now when you when you all go into your company, you will you open your laptop or desktop and you enter your username password, right? That the username password is getting authenticated somewhere. In most organizations, it's Active Directory. Now Active Directory is a technology. Most companies have it, in their own facility on premise. Now they've also, a lot of them have also moved to, first it was called Azure AD, and now it is called Entra ID. Microsoft is like, many governments, they just like to change names, old wine in new bottle. So they already changed name twice, Azure AD and then to Entra ID. We don't know what they'll be called next. They'll just change the name. Entra ID, a lot of companies use Entra ID for authenticating their users. That is an authoritative, or any other IAM, identity and access management system. For example, many companies who use Google Workspace use Google's IAM. Many companies will use third-party IAM because they don't want the overhead of any of these big players. They'll go to companies like, say, Okta, OKTA. Even they give you directory services. There is a very good Indian company, Zoho. They have their own Zoho directory where you can, use that as your main information and access management. Somebody saying something? Yes, sir.
Are you sharing your slide? We're not seeing any slide.
How come you're just so happy listening to my voice, is it? Is it better now?
Yes.
No better.
How come nobody said anything, guys?
No, they've been writing. They've
No,
been
sir, your
talking to
voice is
us.
good, but at the time we need slides also.
Okay. I mean, so one of you could have said, you just sound so good that we didn't miss the slide, right? One of you could have said it made me feel good, made my day for me. Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, so what are the things that we can do is a list of users from Active Directory or whichever is the central user directory. Most medium to large organizations will have some kind of a user directory, right? And then match that against the active active employee list from HR. Now you just take out all the people who have a date, last working date, and then compare them against the Active Directory. If there are any enabled accounts in Active Directory of people who have quit, then you know that there is a problem, right? Sample 10 people who have left from the HR records and confirm that the accounts were disabled within the SLA. Now, SLAs for user disablement, there are a couple of things you should look for. One is that when people have shifts, for example, somebody is on a 6 a.m., his shift ends at 6 a.m., the last working day was today, 6 a.m. Typically, IT systems will disable their account only at 12 p.m. 12 a.m. tonight, midnight tonight, which means that that person may have his account active for over 18 hours. Now, SLAs for normal users, this might still be all right, but for privileged users, there has to be stricter SLAs, right? So depending on the organization, depending on the sensitivity of the data and of the organization's risk appetite, you have to decide whether the SLA is good enough and whether those SLAs are being met. But if you find that SLAs are the same or there are no defined SLAs for account disablement, please raise it and say, listen, it's better to have some SLA for IT to say that if there is a privileged account holder who is quitting, please disable his account immediately or within 6 hours or within 24 hours, as the case may be. And for normal users, please disable their account within 48 hours. Maybe that's don't keep anything for more than 48 hours. Typically, there should be no justification for keeping accounts active for more than 48 hours. Yeah. And quarterly access review sign-off sheets or IT service management tickets is another place for you to look for evidence and to collect it. Account of privileged users, account admin accounts versus total users. The standard global benchmark is that you should not have more than 5%, or typically should have less than 5% of all your users of any application as privileged users or administrative users. You can make a note of this. If it is more than 5%, you have to dig in deeper to see why there are so many administrative users. Okay, role-based access matrix and a role-based access control documentation is another evidence you can look at. I've given a quick thing that, if you the number of accounts you have reviewed in an ERP is 210, you see that accounts revoked were revoked means they were disabled or deleted, as the case may be. 14 privileged accounts are 9, which is 4.3%. It is still okay. Often accounts found 3 is that where there are accounts in the ERP in this case, but those users have quit, they have gone. But their accounts still exist, or they existed beyond the SLA. Right? It can be both reasons. And if there is a reviewer sign off all these steps of disablement and of new users, and when is the next review date? Right? If there are no documented access review is some application owner or leader or department head approving access. Some companies would like to do it once in a month. Some like to do it once in 3 months, depending on the change rate. Some companies have a very slow rate of change. They're even
Yeah,
yes.
once again, slides gone.
I'm not doing anything.
But still, only your face is visible.
Very stupid. I'm not even touching it. Just tell me whenever it happens, guys. Okay.
Yeah, it happened just now.
Okay, super. Just tell me, just unmute it and tell me when it happens. Okay. Red flags, fine. Leave your accounts active for 30 days and no segregation of duties for financial or critical system roles. I did nothing. I'm just right. Okay. Our next CISA batch starts on 14th of April, 14th of March, and it is on Saturday and Sunday, India Standard Time, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Few of you have been in my class. If you want to share your experiences, either which way, good or bad, all is good, guys. If anyone wants to, you can share your experiences before I move on. They say misery likes company, right? So don't be miserable alone. There are others who might not have, who might want to, appear for the CISA course and suffer my class. So you can please speak up. Okay, we try to cover in the 40 hours. Of course, CISA, the course is a vast course. There's a lot of content there. We take the most critical parts of that. Again, we perform a proper risk assessment of which might be the most important topics that will be likely to come in the exam, to be covered in the exam, and then we cover all of those. Yeah, and that's that. Any questions on this, you can direct that to the GISA Council. They'll be happy to help you and answer. Their phone number and their email address is mentioned here. And in 1 second, I also have to show you. 1 sec. 1 sec. Yeah, I want to show you this also. Yeah, you can see my, can't see the screen, no? No, you can't see the screen. You only see my silly WhatsApp. That's okay. I know. I know sharing is gone. I know. I'm just trying to figure out. One second. I think it's back now. No, it's gone again. Google Meet doesn't like me today for some reason. All right, so we'll move on this quickly, guys. Okay, risk assessment and treatment is the third one we're going to look at. Why risk assessment is treatment is important is that it shows that there is at least a decent amount of understanding of the different information assets in the organization, and um, uh, performance of a risk assessment and identifying the risk events or whatever damage can happen. If there is a database, what can go wrong with it, right? The database server can go down, the hardware can go down, the software can get corrupted, somebody can delete data by mistake, the database might get corrupted, you may have to restore it from backup. What kind of backup do I need? How soon do I need to restore the data? How soon should the data be usable? We'll cover RTO and RPO in one of the later slides, right? So risk assessment helps you do two things. Now is that one is that understand what assets you have, understand what can happen to them, any negative event, what is the potential business impact due to those events, and then it helps you identify the most important um, risks which have the maximum impact on business, right? You would ideally you would fix those, right? You will address those instead of addressing the one that might or might not happen in 20 years. If something can happen, let's say every day, what would you or and another thing might happen once in 20 years, or one thing has a potential impact of, one event has a potential impact of $1 million, other one has a potential impact of $100. What should you address first? You should address the bigger risk, right? You should address the biggest business impact. You should try and see how you can reduce the possibility, potential, or impact of that event on the business. That is what a risk assessment allows you to do. With risk assessment, it's very important to also understand the probability of that risk event happening. You can't say, oh, it will happen in it can possibly happen once in 20 years or maybe once in 30 years, but I'm still going to invest money into protecting myself against that risk. That might be an extremely extreme case where, or there might be other things for you to take care of, and that might be money better spent, right? Risk registers should be updated because business environment keeps changing, technology changes, regulation changes, business processes change, people change. Your risk assessment should also change along with it. Okay, risk treatment plan. So once you know what kind of risks are there to different information assets, you should have a risk treatment plan. The risk treatment plan should have who will take care of it, who will implement the risk treatment plan, right? And what are the actions to be taken, and by when they should be taken, and who should check them also. So not just actions taken, but they should be tested also, right? Wherever possible, a risk event should be simulated and tested to see whether the controls implemented on those to manage the effect of those risk events are effective. Only then will a risk assessment itself be effective.
Screen sharing has done.
Goodness gracious, this is dumb. And I'm not even touching the keyboard, okay? Nothing. I'm just sitting here. I think I'm going to keep this here so that I can also see if it goes. Okay. Okay, what are the evidence auditors should collect is the risk assessment methodology. How are you assessing the impact on business of the different identified risks? Have you identified all risks? Of course, is also a question you as an auditor can contribute to and ask, right? The risk register, version history for updates, a risk treatment plan where you verify each high risk has a named owner and a due date. And of course, if the due date was in the past after your audit, follow up on that and see if the due date was met, or why, if the risk treatment plan was not met by the given due date, why was it? Right? Statement of applicability is one where control selected must link to identified risk. You just can't say I, implemented controls without there being any connection to the risks. Any control you implement must show a clear business case of reducing that risk. Otherwise, a control is of no use. So interview the risk owners. Risk owners are people who are responsible for performing the actions required to mitigate those risks. Those are risk owners. Do they know their risks and treatment status? Right. One way to test it in audit is pick 3 high-rated risks, trace each to a statement of applicability, control, a treatment action, evidence of completion. Gaps are your findings. I hope that makes sense so far. This is a bit of a theoretical thing. So, yeah. Supplier relationships and third-party security. One important thing about in any third-party vendor is that whenever your organization is handing over any process to a third-party vendor, the accountability for that process is still yours. You can't say that, oh, this is some vendor has done this, so I'm washing my hands off. To your customers, to your users, you still will be accountable for it. You are an IT head. You have outsourced your IT support to a third party. You can't wash your hands off. It's like saying, I buy a car from Toyota. I know Toyota doesn't make the steering. If the steering goes bad, Toyota will say, it's not my problem. I didn't make it. You talk to the steering manufacturer. You can't say that, right? Toyota can't say that. Toyota says, yes, sorry, we'll fix it for you. Toyota issues recalls for hundreds, thousands of cars, sometimes because of a faulty part or of a danger to the customers. They are taking accountability for it. The same thing applies to IT contracts or any contracts in any organization, and when third parties are involved. Third parties should also be the organization security policies also apply to the third parties. So they should also be compliant with the organization's security policies and practices. Okay. All right. Monitoring of supplier performance, again, very important. What gets measured improves. If it's not monitored, measured, it will not improve. Vendor performance there should be clear metrics on vendor performance, and those metrics must be tracked, monitored, measured, and then any recommendations for improvement must be made to the vendor. Specific attention to cloud services and the information and communication technology supply chain. So that's what added in 2022 as opposed to 2013, I think was the previous one, or 2012, one of those, 2012 or 2013, I forget. Okay. Now, another important thing with vendors is if you terminate their services, how do you get control back? For example, if you have signed up for, say, a SaaS-based product, they'll say, yeah, you can, you stop your service, we'll export all your data to you. But is that data even usable? Has anyone checked if the data is usable? Right? They'll give you data, but you may not be able to use it. So do you understand in what format that data might come? Have you looked at it? That's very important. You might be betting your company on an organization. It's gone again. Yeah. This time I looked at it. I don't know why this is happening. Should I try Google Sheets instead of PowerPoint? Will that work better with Google Meet? Okay. Third-party breaches consistently rank in top 5 incident causes globally. That is why this control is extremely important. And that is why it's important for us as auditors to focus on this control a lot. Right? Your ISO 27000 scope is only as strong as your weakest supplier. So this chain is only as strong as the weakest link. Regulators increasingly hold organizations liable for supplier failures, and that is the right way to do it. Which I just took the silly example of Toyota, for example, right? What are you looking for? You're looking for a list of suppliers categorized by the risk tier, right? The risk tier of a supplier is not how risky that supplier is if something goes wrong in the process that the supplier performs or manages for us, what will be the impact on business, and what is the possibility of those risk events happening. It could be at a very high level. What if the supplier shuts down? If that supplier's business becomes unviable? Now, this is very, if this happens a decent amount, it happens more than you might imagine, because companies drive down suppliers' costs so hard, they squeeze them so hard that eventually they become unviable businesses, right? And a lot of responsibility for killing supplier businesses rests on the people who employ them as vendors. Take sample 3 supplier contracts, confirm that there are information security clauses appropriate for that process, confirm that there are audit rights, that the company giving out the contract should have rights. There are certain exceptions, like for example, if you go to AWS and say, I should have audit rights to come and audit your system, they'll say, buzz off. They'll say, we don't want your business, because they value security over everything else, right? Breach notification SLAs. Now, breach notification SLAs will have to depend on the country that you are in. Now, GDPR requires a 72-hour, I think, if I remember correctly, 72-hour breach notification. In India, certain regulations require 6-hour, have a 6-hour breach notification SLA. So once you identify a breach, you have to notify certain within 6 hours. The annual supplier security assessment reports or questionnaires, evidence of monitoring, penetration test results, SOC 2 reports, ISO certification, termination procedures, evidence of data return, and destruction of data on exit are also important evidences you should collect. Okay, sample supplier risk matrix is access to personal sensitive data, annual assessment plus contractual IS clauses are very important. Tier 2 suppliers, operational dependency, twice a year review plus IS information security applicability addendum, that your security policies, your security practices extend to the third party vendor and supplier. Okay, that's it. Anything else here? I don't think so. Okay, information security incident management. Yes, we are again behind time. This control requires documented incident response policy and procedures. It requires defined roles. Who is the incident manager? Who are incident response team members? What are the escalation paths? Classification schemes for events versus incidents versus major incidents. A post-incident review and lessons learned process, evidence collection and preservation, forensic readiness. Now, why it matters is that slow or uncoordinated response amplifies breach impact exponentially. Whenever an incident happens, if you think about it logically, there are a few steps that anybody would take to manage an incident. You have to detect an incident, you have to know it's happened, you have to identify it, you have to know what it is, right? Something has happened, now this has happened. Then you have to contain it. Containment means to not let it spread, or not let it worsen. And then you have to eradicate it, right? And then you have to do whatever fixes you have to do to ensure that, or minimize the chances of that happening again. And then you have to conduct a post-incident review to see what lessons can be learned to ensure that this doesn't happen. Remember, as auditors, as IT security professionals, we are not looking for perfection, we are looking for progress, right? Progress over perfection, learning from our lessons and not repeating mistakes. Now, what are the evidence we should collect? Incident register, uh, IT service management logs, review 12 months of logged event is a good, if they have logging. If they don't have login, push them to create logs. This today has been a pain. Okay, take a look at 3 closed incidents, trace from detection to classification to containment to eradication to post-incident review and closure. Verify notification timelines for any personal data breaches, 72-hour clock or 6 hour for certain. Post-incident review reports are lessons actioned. Tabletop or simulation exercises records at least once annual. Tabletop is very simple. Tabletop is an exercise where you all get together in a room, look at the plan, read the plan, and say, okay, now if this happens, who will do what, right? Raise your hands. What will you do? Raise your hands. What will you do? Very simple exercise, but it reinforces your response, everybody's response to incidents and disasters, which makes response slightly more automatic instead of shock when the disaster or the event actually happens. Check if staff know the reporting channel, right? Randomly again interview. Okay. Cryptography and key management. Okay. The control requires the cryptography policy. Cryptography, very simple words, encryption. It goes beyond encryption, but encryption is a form of cryptography, and that will help you hopefully understand what this means for those of us who are not technical. Covering approved algorithms, key lengths and use cases, encryption of data at rest and in transit for sensitive or classified information. When you are asking for your bank statement, you are sitting at home on your computer or on your mobile phone, the data that travels between your bank server and your browser or your bank app is encrypted, right? It uses a protocol, transport layer security. So your app or your browser and the bank server, they negotiate, they exchange an encryption key, and then that data is in transit. It is moving. When you make a transaction from your phone, that data is moving to the bank, right? So that is data in transit. The bank is storing data. There have been lots of cases of data breaches and data leakage where critical information of people were stored in plain text. Plain text means normal readable text, no encryption. Right? There are a couple of ways of storing data in a way that they are, even if somebody gets a hold of them, they will not be able to make malicious use of it, which is anonymization. Anonymization is a one-way conversion of data where you cannot retrieve the original form. For some specific cases, anonymization is a good practice. The other thing you can do with data is pseudonymization. Pseudonymization basically is to encrypt it. There is a key. You need that key to decrypt that data. Okay. Formal key management lifecycle: generation, storage, distribution, rotation, revocation, destruction. Now, if you know the basics of how passwords should be managed, change your password regularly, keep it, store your password safely, uh, um, use strong passwords. What are strong passwords? You create a standard. Similarly, for encryption, don't use old standards or weak encryption keys. Use newer standards for encryption. Use longer encryption keys. Like for password, there is no difference. Password is also protecting your identity. Similarly, cryptography or encryption is protecting your data. The principles remain the same. Why it is important is unencrypted data in transit or at rest is a direct path to breach and regulatory fines. Poorly managed keys render strong encryption useless. What does this mean? If you have a very strong password, but you have written it on a post-it and stuck it to your monitor. Right? So similarly, encryption keys for critical data should also be managed in a secure way. Quantum computing threats making algorithm currency increasingly important. Now, quantum computing, the expectation is that cyber criminals are quietly collecting encrypted data. They cannot decrypt the data now, but they are all collecting the data in the hope that in the next 10 years, when quantum computing becomes viable and easily usable and available to everyone, like AI is today, they'll be able to decrypt all that data that they have collected in the last 20, 30 years, what I don't know. Now, post-quantum cryptography is also coming in. I write code in ASP.NET Core in the version 10 that was released a month or two ago. Now, that has some version of post-quantum cryptography. I am yet to explore it. I'll get to it one of these days. Okay. What evidence should we collect? A cryptography policy, confirmed, approved algorithm list is current, and it is new, latest one. Latest standards are also imposed. SSL or TLS scan reports for public-facing systems, database encryption, key management system documentation, and inventory of certificates. One of the biggest thing that happens is website certificates. They expire, nobody monitors them, and then the website stops working. It has happened to me in my own, one of the organizations I've worked. I won't name the organization. The website SSL certificate expired. SSL certificates are issued for a certain period, 1, 2, or 3 years, and that expired, and the website simply stopped working. right? Not a very good scenario for any organization. Yeah. Uh, um, Sample checklist. Check if the older version of TLS is disabled on all endpoints. Encryption addressed of all critical data stored. Encryption of data addresses wherever data is stored. It is not moving. Key rotation performed in the last 12 months. Key rotation, change the key, rotate it. No keys are stored in source code or configuration files. That's the right. You should have a proper secure key store mechanism as well. There are specialized software which you can use to store keys in a secure manner and not just add them in your source code. Some of my websites, by the way, have some keys in. They are not sensitive data. They are API keys for other APIs in config files. I mean, let me tell you that. Certificate expiry monitoring is active, and key management system is used for key storage, at least for the critical and sensitive data keys. Keys stored in plain text config files, self-signed certificates in production, bad idea. Certificates for all applications, be it web servers or digitally signing documents, should be issued by trusted third parties. No documented rotation schedule of keys and weak algorithm still in use. Okay. How are we on time, guys? How are we on time? We have 14 minutes to go. Okay. We are control 7. We just might finish before time today. Okay. Asset management. Asset management is a very critical control. When we speak of risk assessment, we say that if you don't know what you have, you will not be able to identify what risks might apply on them, what might happen to them, and how critical they are, how are they used, where are they used, who is the owner of the asset. All this information is critical for you to understand which asset is how critical to the organization, what kind of sensitive data it may or may not access, process, use, store, manage. Right, each asset is assigned a named owner responsible for classification and protection. Assets are classified by sensitivity, public, internal, confidential, restricted. This typically applies to data or documents. Acceptable use policy for assets, including bring your own device and remote assets. Cloud assets are explicitly included in the scope in the 2022 standard of ISO 27001. Why it matters is you can't protect what you can't see or what you don't know about. Unregistered assets are unprotected assets. Shadow IT and cloud sprawl. Shadow IT is what? When users use third-party IT products without IT approval. Right now, the problem with that is if there's nothing wrong in there, users are finding ways to make their life easy. However, when IT doesn't have control over those, then the chances of data leakage increases because end users are not expected to be extremely tech or data security aware. Okay, asset classification drives proportionate security controls, right? Whatever steps you take to protect your IT assets, your data should be proportionate, appropriate for its sensitivity or the impact on business if something happens to that asset, right? Like there is no point in because if when you spend money inappropriately, additionally, unnecessarily, that is opportunity, that is money lost. It could have been used somewhere else. Understanding what is the impact of any risk event on any asset is the first step to appropriately protecting it. Okay, the evidence that we should collect is asset register, just a list of all assets with owners, age. Age is also very important because uh, every asset has a particular age that can be used. Most people tell me I'm no longer an asset because I'm past my use by age, right? Expiry date is past. But that's a different discussion. So once you know that an asset is old, right, you might have to change it, right? Because using an old asset also might come with some risks. Right? Many companies are still running Windows 10, which Microsoft has stopped supporting since October 14, 2024. They're running it. What is the risk there? Risk is that if there is any vulnerability which is found, somebody could exploit that vulnerability. Sorry, what PPT here? What are you referring to, please?
The one you are presenting now, I guess.
Okay, sure, okay, sure, okay. All right. Compare asset register against network scan. There are open source tools, but please, if you use any open source tools and you run any network scans, please do it at a time when there doesn't cause any disruption, and make sure that the IT team is aware of your performing a scan. Right? Don't do any network scans without the IT team's written permission. Okay. Okay, take 10, 10 sample assets, verify each has a named owner and assign classification. Data classification labels on files, folders, databases. Spot check shared drives, acceptable use policy, and a cloud asset discovery report. Clouds, the thing with clouds is that because it is so easy to start machines, to add new servers, storage, all kind of services, there has been a lot of there's been a lot of problems companies have faced because people will just start machines without considering the cost. It would look like it's very cheap. Oh, it's only $1 or $1 a minute, right? But when you multiply it, you keep multiplying it over few days, the costs go into hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of the year. So having a process to not only control that, but also have an idea of what all you have, right? Then if you at least know what servers I'm running in the cloud, then you will be able to see whether I need those many servers or not. But if you're just simply starting up servers, starting up different services on the cloud without any control over identifying what you have, that is what we call, cloud sprawl. You're going to quickly run out of money. Okay. Vulnerability management. All software will have some vulnerability. Okay. Timely identification of vulnerabilities across all in scope. In scope means whatever is the systems in scope of your audit. Assessment of exposure and risk before remediation. Define remediation SLAs based on severity, patch management process, penetration testing as a validation layer. Okay, at least I know. What does penetration testing do? Penetration testing tries to see if vulnerabilities exist that can be exploited. If you have been managing your vulnerabilities properly, if you've been patching them, if you've been following vendor recommendations for patching your different systems, the chances of a penetration test showing a potential successful penetration are low, right? But if you have not been regular or diligent with your patching of vulnerabilities in the systems you use, then the penetration test will throw up a lot of deficits in your vulnerability. It will show a lot of vulnerabilities. Now, there are some cases where some vulnerabilities cannot be patched because of incompatibility with other software. If it is not a high risk vulnerability, as an auditor, you still might accept it because it is qualified by a software vendor or a system vendor saying that it doesn't affect us, it doesn't matter to us. We don't have the systems that might get affected by this vulnerability, or if this vulnerability causes our software to not work. Now we need to fix this software to work for us, and we will fix it in so much time. Right? That is the kind of proactive vulnerability management that we are looking for. Unpatched vulnerabilities are the number one attack vector in ransomware incidents and in other incidents like virus, worm, infections, and other kind of advanced persistent threat infections. All of them use some exploit some vulnerability in systems. CVSS scores alone don't prioritize. Contextual risk assessment is essential. So how that vulnerability affects your organization's working is important, not just what CVSS is a database of common vulnerabilities where you can find all over the internet. They will have, or they will extract the vendor's classification of a particular vulnerability or of a patch as critical or not so critical, or low, or of low, medium criticality. what a vendor says medium risk might be high risk for you. What the vendor says high risk might be medium risk for you, or no risk for you if you're not using certain parts of the system. So the IT team should be aware of which vulnerabilities affect them and which they should patch. Look for vulnerability scan reports. Vulnerability scanning is very easy now. It costs barely any money. It is simply the cost of any old desktop, right? And you don't even need a dedicated desktop. You can just, get a USB drive, boot it in Kali Linux, run your vulnerability assessments internally and externally, and you can patch them, right? And these are all open source, available, easily doable. Or any of you can find Kali KALI Linux, bootable USB, and start working on it, and you will be able to practice it. Okay. Oh God, this is so irritating today. I'm sorry about this, guys. I really don't know what's happening. Okay, what should you look for? Vulnerability scan reports, at least for 3 months. Should once in a month is a good, or once in a month, or if there is any new update to a software, you should do a vulnerability scan. From credential scan, not just network level. A credential scan means scans which have used credentials to access to log into systems and then scanned. If you don't log into systems, you may not get access to a lot of internal facilities, then your scanning itself is not useful. Track a log of tracking remediation, patch management policy, penetration test report of the last 12 months, and risk acceptance record. These are the kind of records that we should look for. Okay. Logging, monitoring, and anomaly detection. The event logs, all systems, applications in IT create event logs of what they are doing, what went wrong, what warnings. Typically, there are 3 levels of logs that IT systems create: information, warning, and error. Events produced by logs should be protected from tampering. I briefly mentioned that earlier as well, and from unauthorized access. Yeah, I also mentioned that when we were discussing segregation of duties, if you remember. There should be a defined detention period which should be aligned to legal, regulatory, and forensic needs. Monitoring, automated alerting for anomalous what behavior is important. Now, how you do it is that, depending on, again, the size of the company, the risk assessment, you can set up a software that will take all logs from all systems and look for anomalies and highlight them, and alert the security team that this kind of behavior is being found. Organizations with no monitoring cannot detect or investigate breaches. Log integrity is critical for legal proceedings and regulatory investigations. Mean time to detect directly reduced by effective monitoring. Okay, makes sense so far? So far, so good. What are the evidences we should collect? The logging policy. SIEM is a security incident or event incident and event management software. These are software which will take logs from many systems, IT systems, networks, servers, softwares, applications, and they will correlate those events to see what is happening. They look for behavior that is out of the normal. Log retention configuration. Log retention can have regulatory regulation, can also specify certain periods of log regulation. For example, in India, telcos are required, or internet service providers are required, I think, to keep logs of internet access, websites accessed by everyone, all of their users, for I think 1 year. Imagine the amount of logs they would have to keep, right? What are the rules for alerts? Sample 3 triggered alerts. Check log integrity. Are logs write protected or stored in a separate system where administrators cannot access them? Are logs being reviewed? Just keeping them in one, or recording them, storing them, is not good enough. You should review logs. And the best way to review logs, because they can be quite large in number, is to have a software like SIEM which will use those logs and throw you alerts. Then you only have to look at those alerts. Right. Okay. Last, we'll end with business continuity. Business continuity should be planned, implemented, tested, and monitored. There are these 3-4 verbs that are used are very important. These 4 verbs will tell you what the an effective business continuity policy or practice will mean. Right? A business impact analysis is required by the control. Recovery time and recovery point objectives should be defined depending on the criticality of systems. Business continuity and disaster recovery plans should be documented. ICT continuity plan should be tested at least annually, not just documented. A backup strategy should be aligned to recovery points with verified restore testing. If you don't test your backups, there is no guarantee they'll work when you need them. An untested plan is an untrustworthy plan. Most business continuity plans fail at the first real invocation of the plan when they are not tested. Ransomware has made BCP DRP hygiene a board level concern. Regulators mandate continuity testing with audit trails. The evidence you should collect is a BIA document and ensure that appropriate RTO and RPO per system have been identified, implemented, verify management sign off and acceptance of those RTO and RPO. RTO and RPO have a direct relation to the continued existence of an organization. Okay, here it goes again. Today is. Does anyone know why this happens? Okay. Last, the disaster recovery test report, backup logs, offsite cloud backup confirmation, tabletop exercises. That is the end of the thing today. I have managed to end on time. Okay. I'll quickly summarize this slide. I think ma'am said you will get it. Evidence over assertions. Just the auditee saying that we do it is not good enough. I have given a lot of sample evidences that you can collect, how you can challenge IT. And for IT professionals, this is an example of what are the records you should maintain. So this presentation can be used by auditors and by IT people to see how should I maintain my logs so that not only am I able to satisfy audit, but also strengthen my security posture. That makes sense? You can take a couple of questions if anybody has any questions, or I will wish you a good night or good evening. Does that make sense, guys? Anyone? Does it make sense? Was it useful? I'm sorry, I had to rush a little bit because I wanted to cover these 10.
Yeah, it was quite useful.
Awesome. So I'm sure.
Hi, just one doubt here. So regarding the vendor security assessment, how can we do that actually? It's a third-party vendor, right? So how can we make sure their security
So
assessment?
I'll give you a real life example. I was contracted by a national health insurance company in India. This was last year, and they had a right to audit clause with one of their vendors, whose responsibility was to perform checks on claims, right, which the company thought might be fraudulent. So they went. So I went to the vendor's premise because there was a right to audit clause. I went to the vendor's premise and I tested their IT practices, and I sent a report to the national insurance company and to say that, and of course their IT practices were terrible, to say the least. They were quite bad. So that's how
So
it
is
works.
this possible is this possible every time we need to go to the client other vendor location and do the assessment?
Yes, you have to do it. Every time, see, typically these would be done once a year, or if there are any major changes, it has to be done. Because typically these vendors are, small vendors, right? One, they are lax in their practices because to implement these practices properly costs money. Yeah. To implement proper IT control costs money. They don't come cheap. So vendors take shortcuts.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, in most of the time, we face a challenge. Like if it's a SaaS-based application,
Yeah.
so most
They
of the
won't let
time
you
that
audit. They won't
hi,
let
this
you.
is Yogesh this side.
Yes, Yogesh.
Yeah. So most of the time I face a difficulty, or you can say challenge, when the application owner says, "Okay, it's a SaaS-based product. So why you require other details like tech stack and other details? Why we require? Because it's a SaaS product, so we have already given the these things."
No, it depends on what the SaaS product is, Yogesh. Now, let's say it's SAP S4 Rise, SAP Rise, right? You know, it's a now for that kind of a product, whatever vulnerabilities exist, they are known. Okay. Now, what are you trying to ask? What is the question you are trying to ask? Why do you? I would also ask you, what are you auditing? Let's start with that.
So normally what we do now, we do a application audit for the PFS, for example, hypothetical example. So when we do any audit, we do audit for BFSI, and there are most of the products they are having like applications, they are having a SaaS base.
Hmm.
So when we start doing a walkthrough and other things, and we start collecting the, so if we ask for the tech stack or any other details, so what face challenge ki it's a SaaS based product hai yaar, why you require all details वैसा.
Hmm. I don't think the tech stack is really important. I don't know why you would ask for the tech stack. What
Because
is
because many we observe that there are SaaS vendors who are using open source.
yeah,
So which is again a vulnerability for me. It's
yeah,
as you said start of the meeting, that even if you given a
yeah,
SaaS
absolutely.
as
So
a what
using
liability lies to you only. So
100%.
that's why.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I agree with you. Then that's a good point. Now, I also am struggling with that issue in one place. Now, what I'm trying to do is ask that SaaS vendor to share their vulnerability assessment reports by a decent third party, and they have that, and they said yes, we will share that. And this is Microsoft, right? Microsoft said, we conduct these tests every year. Here are the reports. They are willing to share those reports. So why don't you ask a SaaS vendor for their vulnerability assessment report? Why don't you try
Okay.
that? Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
most of the at least the reputable SaaS vendors will give you their SOC 2, SOC 3 kind of report, with which give you a certain level of confidence that their practices are in line with certain industry standards.
Yeah, so we give an option the way you said, no, SOC 2 reports. You
Hmm.
can share the SOC 2 report that will help us to, like, it's there is no risk associated. But if it's a open source, then there is a challenge.
You can ask them for a vulnerability assessment report. Yeah, 100%. You can ask them.
Okay.
Certainly, you can ask them.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else? Awesome.
There is one more question, sorry. Yeah. So regarding vulnerability assessment, you mentioned. So if there is an application, there are some vulnerabilities, and there is some dependency, we cannot do the vulnerability patches.
Yeah.
So in that case, who has to accept the risk, by the application owner or the server owner or the management? Who has to actually accept the risk in case of dependency? We cannot do it vulnerability patches.
Acceptance of risk is always the management, the senior leadership.
Okay.
Okay, always.
So we
Because
should have some security treatment or controls in place, then we can reduce the risk. That's what we can do it, right?
yes, yes, because risk belongs to the enterprise, and enterprise belongs to senior leadership.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Awesome, nice, lovely. I hope to see some of you in the next CISA course. No, we're also doing an internal audit, a course on focused on internal audit, which starts this Saturday. You can look it up. Where is this? Okay. Anyway, if there are no other questions, have a good evening and have a good day. I will see you somewhere down the road. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.